Oh,
Oh
my.
boy. Good evening, folks, family, friends, loved ones, enemies, frenemies, wizards, witches, muggles, mudbloods, people of Middle Earth, StreamYard, technical support, and anyone and everyone else that is tuned in live here to another episode of Disguise Coverage, part of the Cover One Sports Network, the only podcast in existence, I promise you, that gives you an equal amount of blueberries in each muffin. I apologize for the delay that Mr. Russell Brown and myself had here. There were some traffic issues with StreamYard. I'm going to break the fourth wall here and let you guys know what's up. And basically what we have here in this setup is we have a go live button, and you click the button and it goes live. I would click the button and it would be like, nope, can't let you go live right now. Too much traffic. Please wait 30 to 60 seconds. And it's been 19 minutes, but here we are. Lo and behold, to again, like I said, another episode of Disguise Coverage presented by, you guys should already know the deal, the best pizza in Buffalo, One Pie Pizza. The online menu to One Pie Pizza can be found in the episode show notes here on YouTube or any of the audio podcasting platforms you are listening to Disguise Coverage on. Check out the online menu. Go get yourself some delicious sweet sauce pie, pizza, homemade blue cheese, potato salad, some garlic knots, some soda that they keep in the fridge that's chilled to perfection. Anything and everything. They're great people making great pizza. You guys know the deal. I'm joined tonight by a man who's a very busy man, who's been very successful. And, oh, that's funny. That's funny. The comment here is disguised and delayed coverage. That is very accurate, Daniel. Well played. Well played. Mr. Russell Brown, fan of the show, friend of the show, Mr. WrestleMania
of the show.
Of the show. I would say like enemy of mine in the wrestling world outside of this. But you had a lot of success recently in your career, and I kind of want you to announce to the people what's going on for you. And I've also, in the promo for this episode, I described you as an NFL draft expert because you really know your stuff and you talk ball. And I enjoy guys who can talk ball. But now I feel like that expert tag is even more appropriate given, you know, what you've had in your world recently.
Well, one, I appreciate it. Whether you're a Bret Hart stan or not, I always appreciate your work and everything that you do for the brand because, you know, we need guys like us as workhorses, as Iron Men.
That's what Taylor says, 2 workhorses killing it.
Yep, exactly. Now, I will say before I get started on my own self, I will say as good as One Pie Pizza is, Detroit did get voted for the best pizza in the country.
Did they really?
They did. I don't know.
Detroit make good. I've never had pizza from Detroit. I've been to Detroit twice, but I never had pizza there.
Detroit style pizza is very good.
I didn't know Detroit style pizza was a thing.
Oh, buddy, it's pretty solid.
What makes it a thing? Like, what do they do? What do you guys do?
So basically, you think of like a deep crust pizza.
Okay.
It's like that across the board. It's not like every piece can be like a corner piece, which is phenomenal. It's
interesting.
It's very, very good. But yeah, if you ever come out this way, you know, we always play each other in the preseason. Make your way out to Detroit. I'll treat you to some pie. It'll be a good time.
That'd be a good time. I'd be excited for that.
Yes, it would be a very good time. But yeah, no, recently I was picked up in the world of radio video for Woodward Sports Network, which is a local Detroit sports digital media company, which for me, it's been kind of my dream since I was 16. I went to Michigan camp and I knew I will never play college football. I looked at Jake Long and I was like, never in the world will I play this sport ever again. So I'll enjoy it in high school. But my goal after high school is to get into radio and talk sports. And I had a kid at 18. It kind of put it on the back burner because I had to take care of him and be a family guy. And obviously I'm still being a family guy. He's only 12. He's not out of the house yet. But
he's the bomb on Dons.
He's the bomb on Dons. But no, I got approached by Woodward Sports, who I've been on multiple shows for them. And, you know, they've got, 25,000 subscribers on YouTube. They're on a couple of the FM stations here in Metro Detroit, and they do a lot of just Detroit sports stuff. And they brought me on as an NFL draft analyst. So I'll be doing that and Cover One. And, we just continue to grow, but most importantly, we continue to grind. So I'm excited to do that here.
That's fantastic, man. I'm like I mentioned to you offline, and I wanted to tell you here for the world to see and hear. I'm super pumped for you. You are as genuine as they come in terms of like a person and also in terms of like your profession, like what you do, ball. Like we say it all the time. Like you just talk ball, like you just sit and talk technique and what's going on. And there's so much more to, I feel like in this day and age, especially in content creation, you have a lot of people that, operate on the surface level of things and operate
Good
with
thing.
just the like, oh man, this guy's awesome. And then it's like, okay, cool. Why is he awesome? It's like, well, I mean, like, if we like talk receivers, for example, oh man, why is he awesome? Well, I mean, like, look how he got open. Oh, cool. But how did he get open? Like, what did he do? Well, I mean, like, touchdown. You know,
Right.
like you know your stuff. You're well traveled, well
Thank you.
versed. You know, you got your son up on the whiteboard now, diagramming and diagnosing coverages and breakdowns and things like that. Like, you know your stuff, and I'm very happy to see, you know, a genuine person and a good dude and someone who is like honed his craft and worked at the professionalism of this job start to make it somewhere and, you know, push your career even further.
Thank you,
So
bro.
you're welcome. You deserve it. And I'm very excited to have you on the show tonight. I'm very excited that we're finally able to go live. Finally,
It took a little while,
took a
and I
little
will say,
while.
I will say, Little Caesars is disguised
That's funny.
cardboard,
I didn't see
and
that.
I will agree, but for the price, you can't beat it.
That's like $5
But
for the pie.
also, that's not just like Detroit style pizza. That's just a company from Detroit. That's all there is to it. If you want good pie, let me take you to Freddie the Pizza Man
Oh
down
boy.
the street, and it is, oh my God, his goulash.
Oh,
Forget about it.
Chef's
Forget
kisses
about it.
over here. Chef's
Forget about
kisses over here. I like it. I like
Yeah.
it.
Oh,
We should just talk about pizza the whole
man.
time. It'd be super
Man.
misleading. Man. But I have you on the show to talk about the wide receivers class for this draft, the position grouping that has now kind of switched a little bit from a Bills perspective, which I want to lay out the episode for here for everyone. So Russ and I, we're going to talk about what we look for in scouting wide receivers. Then we're going to talk about who our wide receiver one is, talk about the top of this class a little bit, talk about some day 2 receivers, some day 3, what receivers fit the Bills. And then Russ has another appearance tonight because he's a super hardworking man and a workhorse himself. He's going to go do his thing for some Detroit Lions stuff. I'm going to stay here, and then we're going to talk about anything and everything you guys have for wide receivers, questions, comments, thoughts, concerns coming up for the draft, but also Tyreek Hill to the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins have made a lot of moves. Dude, like the landscape of the AFC East has changed a little bit. The landscape of the AFC now because of what Miami's done, but also what's happened to Kansas City. There's a lot to talk about. You guys know we love the engagement here on the show, but because Russ is a little stretched for time, any comments, questions, thoughts, concerns, maxims, theorems, ideologies, whatever you guys put into the chat, I'm going to mark them all, try to get to everything by the end of the show like we do, especially once Russ goes. But for the beginning part of this show, we're going to dive into this wide receiver class. And for me, Russ, I want to lead off with this question because, again, you know ball, you know traits and skill sets and what translates and what's sustainable. And that's the big thing when you're looking at prospects, right? Like, you don't want to just look at the good. You don't want to just look at highlights or one play. You want to look at game tape. You want to look at the entire process so you can see, okay, what's the good, what's the bad, and see how sustainable that player can be at the NFL. Can they reduce those negatives? Can they amplify those positives? And there's a lot when you're looking at players from all positions, but especially with wide receivers because of how sexy of a position it is. So I wanted to start with this. What do you look for when scouting wide receivers for the next level?
Well, I mean, for starters, I always look at their release package off the line of scrimmage. I always look at how they move laterally, how their feet are, and I start to pay attention to kind of their stances and where they are. Do they have too much bend in their knee? Not enough bend in their knee.
Like that.
Are they leaning on their toes? What foot comes forward? What's kind of their strong suit with their lower body? And I like to see obviously flexibility, but I also like to see lateral quickness. And you always look at how they, when they release off the line of scrimmage, whether it's off man, whether it's press, you're always looking and you want to see, are they pulling out the basketball moves? Because so many players have basketball backgrounds from offensive linemen to wide receivers to defenders. Doesn't matter. You see all this stuff all the time. And I always just think of like Devontae Adams crossover moves, and instantly a player that comes to mind when we talk in this draft is going to be Chris Olave, who does that very similar with his releases and how he moves laterally. So I love seeing that. But then I like to see when they run their routes, are they throttling down? Are they really like stiff in their hips when they're breaking in or out? And then when they push vertically up the field, obviously I like to see, fast receivers, but also how do they adjust to the football? And when they make those adjustments to the football, is it an acrobatic catch? Is it just they kind of got lucky? Are they making those catches? Are they making some stupid drops? And how do they play through contact and especially contact from cornerbacks and defenders, because there's so many times where defenders are so good and so strong at playing through the catch point. So as they come up to catch the football right here in this catch point, they go up and they catch it. And then at the same time, you have a defender coming in, and that defender is coming in to go through this little spot.
Rip it out.
And I just like to see how they react to that, respond to that, and how is their performance. And you tie all that in and you kind of figure out what kind of receiver you have. For example, Treylon Burks, really big receiver as far as 6'3", 225, can run a 4.5 40. That's all good and well, but he's not going to create a ton of separation with his route running ability. He's a little stiff in that regard. And as he breaks in, there's linebackers and safeties and even nickels that kind of suffocate him in a sense, but he does a really good job through contact, and he's got the length. And if you watch his play speed, he gets faster as he goes along. So once he kind of gets churning, he gets moving, he gets going, and he gets a little bit tougher to bring down or catch for that matter. And that's why you watch him and you see so much within the game with him with, jet motions and orbit motions and so many different things with him that work. But that's what I look for in receivers in a very technical term.
I love that. And you hit on several points that I really look towards. My number one thing for me is, I guess it's kind of like a broad thing, but the route running piece and the separation piece. Like, what do you have in your arsenal? Can you separate? I love what you mentioned with the release package at the line of scrimmage. How do you get clear at the line? What do your feet look like? What does your hand technique look like? Are you able to clear hands? Are you able to keep your surface area clean? How good is your footwork? How do you separate also in the other parts of the route stem? Can you separate at the line? Can you separate at 5 yards with speed? Can you separate at the top of the route? What kind of body language do you use? Shoulder lean, all that kind of stuff. And then your steps and your footwork. How sudden or decisive are you in your movements? Do you have those quick jab steps? I love that analogy piece, the basketball crossover moves. Like, I love that. And that's somebody who I really love in this draft and who's my wide receiver one that we're going to talk about in a bit when we talk about our wide receiver ones, Garrett Wilson. I love how he's able to just stab and put his foot in the ground, and it's like an Allen Iverson crossover, and he just brings it right back, and the corners turn around, and he's done. Like, I like to see that nuance, that crispness, that snap, because it's hard to get open in the NFL, even though so many of the rules favor the offense and favor wide receivers and make it so hard for the defender to even touch you or breathe on you or say anything mean to you at any point. Like, it favors the offense and it favors wide receivers, but there's still an art to separating. If not, everybody who's just fast, like guys like John Ross, would just be succeeding left and right, and every receiver would be a hit. And we see so many guys who just fizzle out a little bit. And Brandon Beane said something 2 years ago when they acquired Stephon Diggs. And because everybody talked about that draft, that was the Justin Jefferson draft, and people talked about how receiver heavy it was and how good of a class it was. And Beane talked about how much of a mental hurdle there is for rookie wide receivers in the NFL, not just the physical piece, but that mental piece, especially with so many teams in college are running, hurry up or quicker kind of offenses, or the offenses where you get to the line and wait and you look to the sideline and you get your call. Like, there's a different level to route running and nuance and reading coverages and everything you have to do in the NFL. And so I look for that, anything that has to do with that mental or that technical piece. Do you understand route running? Do you understand separation? Or are you just the guy that's like, oh, well, I just win because I'm fast or I'm big? Because that might work in the NFL, but everyone in the NFL is fast.
Everybody's
correct. Like, what do you do? Like, what do you do when you get to that point? Like, because you're not just going to be the biggest fish in the pond anymore. There's a ton of other big fish. What do you do to separate from that big fish? And like that technical piece is the biggest one. For me, it's all about like that route running aspect. Obviously, I want to see some speed. I want to see their hands. I want to see them high point the football. I love the contact piece. What do you do at the catch point when someone's ripping through with that arm and getting their hand on the ball, or their arm on your arm and they're wrenching? Do you have that hand strength? Do you have that ability to go up and get it and take that ball? I really like that too. But for me, it all starts with that route running. I want to see that technicality. And, going into the next little part here, next topic is where's my banner? There it is. So we've got this draft class, and Russ, you are very well known in these parts for your big board, your mock drafts, your rankings, all that stuff. So, I know that's going to be coming out as we get closer to the draft, and I don't want to spoil anything, but there's a lot of, in this class, there's a lot of pick your poison in different flavors in
Yep.
this class. Bigger wide receivers, route runners, fast guys, less technical and more physical. Like there you have the Garrett Wilsons and the Drake Londons and the Traylon Burks and the Jameson Williams. And you could almost ask like 10 people who their wide receiver one is, and you might legitimately get like 6 or 7 different answers of who wide receiver one is because of those flavors and because people look for different stuff. So with that, who is your wide receiver one in this wide receiver class and why?
It truly is a pick your flavor, and it's kind of the same way with like edge rushers and even safety in a sense outside of maybe like Kyle Hamilton. But with this receiver group, the top receiver for me is Drake London out of USC.
Ooh, I like it.
I just love his size, his length for the position. You see a guy that's got this athletic profile that matches a basketball background. And I mentioned, guys that can cross over and things like that. And he won't do that as consistently as maybe a Garrett Wilson or a Chris Olave, but he does just such a good job of climbing the ladder, high pointing the football. He plays with terrific body control. And it just feels like every 50-50 ball thrown his way, he wins. And I know he got hurt this past year, so we haven't seen him play in quite some time. But when you watch him play and you see the amount of targets, the production, regardless of the quarterback, he was able to put up those numbers. And he was playing against, teams like Notre Dame and good defenses across the country. He played against some very good defenders, out in Washington. We've talked about those guys quite a bit. And he's played against some very good competition in his career. And the fact that, he has been as productive as he has been, it's been huge. But I think one thing that really stands out to me, appreciate you, Kendall. And I think the thing that really stands out is just how well he does working back to the quarterback. I love seeing when a quarterback is in duress, it's maybe an underrated skill set for a receiver, but when a quarterback's struggling, he goes sideline to sideline or all over in the backfield. You see Mahomes do it. You see Wilson do it. And a lot of the times they don't have receivers that come back to them. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. London does it consistently.
I was going to say, and that's a super important piece in today's NFL where so many QBs work off script and you have to have that ability to adjust on the fly and become QB friendly.
Right, exactly. And I look at him and like he was used in motions at time off of play action, from jet sweeps and things like that. And I just look at him in so many different ways. And he just brings so much from how he climbs the ladder. And again, just as that traditional X receiver, I watch him, I think of Mike Evans, and I look at that basketball background. He played basketball at USC a little bit for a season or two. And when he was in high school, he averaged 29 and 12 as far as 29 points and 12 rebounds, like super athlete. And he's going to run in about another week or so at the April 5th, like personal pro day out of USC. And I think he's going to do really well. And if he doesn't, maybe it changes a little bit, but again, it is pick your flavor. And I have 6 guys that I absolutely love in this class as far as first rounders. And I have 6 first round grades. I'm not afraid to say it. I might be wrong. That's the most I've ever given to wide receivers. Wow. I think these receivers are really talented, but yeah, London by far is the guy that it was close, but by far was my highest rated receiver.
I like that. I want to take a pause for a minute. Ned, you are always killing it. Thank you so much for your donation and the question. I'm going to put that on the back burner for now, and I'm literally going to make a note of it because when we get to on the back part of this episode, when we start to talk Bills stuff and all the development, we're definitely going to get in on that question. I'm literally making a note, and if I forget about it, someone remind me as soon as Russ leaves. No offense, Russ. As soon as Russ goes, I'm going to hit that question first. I appreciate you, Ned. You're always a supportive guy of myself in this entire show. So thank you very much. And good thought-provoking question. Russ, I have a question for you about Drake London. Drake London's my number 2. I love everything you mentioned. I really like how he separates at the line of scrimmage. His hand clearance is so beautiful. I like how we can separate at different points. I like how he high points the football, whether he's going up for a jump ball versus one guy or two. If he has to come back to the ball, he still high points it. He comes through the catch point. He doesn't even just meet it at the catch point. He comes through and takes it. Like that's his ball when it's in the air. I also love, you mentioned some of the motion stuff. There's a snap. I don't remember who it's against. He's functioning as like the tight end in like a split zone block, and he comes across and just pops. I want to say it was like Michigan State, but it's not. It's somebody who,
I think it was Notre Dame.
Maybe it's Notre Dame, and he comes through and he blocks like a linebacker, like a 6'3", 240-pound linebacker. And he puts his shoulder down, and I pulled the clip and posted it and everything. And I've done so many clips this offseason, but even that piece, right? Like he can He can block. He's physical. He's big. One thing that people love to get at him for, they talk about the speed, they talk about the quickness, they talk about that separation. You see people who are detractors of his, they love to give him that N'Keal Harry comp and say, well, Harry couldn't separate, and he makes all these contested catches because he can't separate. That won't happen in the NFL. What
There's
are your
Stanford.
thoughts? Stanford? Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
And you know what? He's had a bunch. Like I'm playing, he can do so much. Like he can function in the slot running routes or blocking on the outside, blocking true X, whatever you want. I really like him a lot. But what do you say, especially with him as your wide receiver one, what do you say for the people who talk about him and say that he won't be able to separate in the NFL?
I say go back and check the tape, because there's plenty of times
I like that.
where you'll watch him do a double move and he's wide open and he's not getting the football, or it gets overthrown by a mile because of bad quarterback play. But, you mentioned how he works his hands and how he's able to create separation off the line of scrimmage, but at different parts down the field. I have a clip. I want to say he's playing against Washington, and he's running down the field. He runs a post. He gets to maybe about 8 or 9 yards before he starts to make that move. And in the process, off the line of scrimmage, he works his hands, gets clear to run this way. And then as he's breaking in, the corner, catches up and is kind of in that space. And he just uses his hands again to clear and get clear and get in the post and get where he needs to be. He makes the catch and he keeps, running down the field. And I feel like he trucked the safety, and then the corner was kind of like strapped to his back. But it's just like things like that you see. And again, you just see these acrobatic catches all the time that guys like Hopkins and Mike Williams and Mike Evans and all these guys that make these 50-50 balls that make all the difference in the world for bad quarterback play, because he might not go to a good football team. If he is the first receiver off the board, if he goes to the Jets, let's say at 10, and he goes there, I mean, Zach Wilson, sure, we don't know what he's going to be. There's a lot of arm talent there, but if he's not if he's not necessarily Patrick Mahomes or Russell Wilson or something like that, and he's just like Ryan Tannehill 2.0 or something, I mean, Drake London's going to have to get him out of trouble at times. Yeah. And Drake London did that all the time at USC. And I think of potential landing spots as well and how it transitions. And I think wherever he goes, there's going to be success.
I like that a lot. Again, he's my wide receiver too. I think he can separate. He's, when I talk about what I look for in wide receivers, he's that kind of guy. He separates at multiple points in his stem because of his route running ability, because of his hands. He understands leverage. He understands space. You even see what you look for, like in quote unquote slower guys. How do they separate underneath on like the hitches and the stop routes and that? And he's able to run dudes off and get like 3-4 yards of separation on like a 7-yard hook because of his route running, because of his body language, because of what he sells. And then there's a couple clips like where if you want to get up on him, cool. There's several against Notre Dame where the corners just get up on him and it's a snap and it's just a whoop, clear those hands and get right up the sideline, create that separation with speed. And then he maintains that through the catch point. I really, really like him. Kendall loves him. And a bunch of people got at him on Twitter saying that London couldn't separate. So Russ, I'll say this is music to his ears as he says, I feel vindicated from this conversation. Kendall also mentioned earlier. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I got your back, buddy.
He was super pumped the whole time he was putting comments in there. Kendall also helped me out. The one I was thinking of in that split zone where he blocks the linebacker was Washington State. You've got one for Stanford. There's another one versus Notre Dame. He literally does it all the time. Like, and that stuff
matters.
It matters big time. I talked about it with what Gabriel Davis did for the Buffalo Bills with the injury to Emmanuel Sanders and Beasley, him coming on as wide receiver too. What was so nice with that is because of his size and stature and blocking ability, you've now got this extra piece who can function in the run game. And then what also helps with that, you can go with misdirection and tendency break. You can throw out some play action looks where it's going to be a run and he sells the block and then he pops out into a route and he's wide open. It happened for Gabriel Davis time and time again. And someone like Drake London, I love that versatility. From a wide receiver position, he can line up outside, he can line up inside, but then he can block in the run game outside. He can block on the inside. He can block defensive ends and edges and actual off-ball linebackers and make plays in addition to the pass game. I really like him a lot. Yeah, he's my wide receiver too, but as I mentioned earlier, my wide receiver one is Garrett Wilson. For me, his route running and his sharpness and his suddenness combined with the speed and the athleticism. The catch he had against Michigan was unreal in the front corner of the end zone. The catch last year against Clemson in the playoffs, where he climbs the ladder, dude, like he looked like he literally climbed a ladder. Like he's feet off the ground making a catch. And then, like I mentioned earlier, what I look for, I just love his route running. I love the stabs. I love the suddenness. I love the sharpness. I love the basketball crossover potential that he has.
Yeah.
Go on.
Oh, I was going to it paused for a second. So I thought you were done. My bad.
No, I was going to keep going, but I heard you go so I was like, let me let him go. Go ahead, do your thing.
But no, I was just going to say, and he runs his routes at like different speeds too.
Yes.
And I think that's the thing that really sticks out to me. And I think people kind of labeled him as a guy that needs to get more polish within his routes. And I'm with you. As I watched him more, it was, man, he actually runs these routes very well. And he just gets better and better with each yard that he takes. And I think, he's able to run it at different tempos, and he keeps these defenders honest in certain spaces, in certain areas of the field. That's very important when it comes to, running routes, whether it's in man coverage, against zone, whatever it might be. But I like Garrett Wilson a lot. He's not my wide receiver 1 or 2. He's wide receiver 3. But again, it's because Chris Olave has just been so consistent. But I'm sure we'll get into all these guys. But I just wanted to add that little piece about running the routes at different speeds.
I appreciate you. That's one I like too. I like having different gears in your route running, different pace. It's not just, well, I'm either at a standstill or I'm at 100 miles an hour. No, can you go 25? Can you go 50, 75, 100? Can you hit these different gears? And then I like how he can go from 100 to 0 and throttle down in like 2 steps. It's just a quick bang, bang. He can drop and sink those hips and get 1 or 2 steps. It doesn't take him 3, 4, or 5 to get a turn. He's got that flexibility, and he's got that burst to his game at all times. And it's tough though, again, with this group, like there's so many at the top with, not even putting them in order now, but just Wilson and London and Chris Olave, and some people really like Jameson Williams, and some people like Treylon Burks, and then some people now are thinking Jahan Dotson is going to be like a top 20 pick. There's all these potential names that are dropping left and right, and it's a really strong class, like top to bottom, but especially at the top of the class, like first round grades, second round grades, and that's where we're going to move to now, like the day 2 picks. So we've got the first round guys. And as Russ, you mentioned, you got 6 wide receivers with first round grades. Now we talk to that day 2 piece, right? So for those who don't know, day 2 is rounds 2 and 3 of the draft. So you're wrapping up with round 3 at the end of day 2. And there's still a lot of potential in this group on day 2, especially if one of those guys with a first round grade fall to day 2, right? But if you're looking at your guys, so you've got your 6 guys who are your first round grades, but if you're looking at day 2, a round 2 guy or a round 3 guy, who's someone for you that presents the best day 2 value?
I do want to just add one quick thing to Garrett Wilson. You mentioned with his route running and running it at different speeds, and kind of like we talked about, that's what throws me off though with him, is because I think at times his base gets a little bit too wide, and I don't know if
that's fair.
And I don't know if it's because he's trying to do a little bit too much within the stem of the routes or whatever he's trying to do. It just feels like at times he's trying to do too much, and it really just throws me off. But also I think his hands could become a little bit more consistent too. He had 11 career drops. He had 6 this past year. You think back a few years ago, Jerry Jeudy, he had 10 coming out when he was, coming out of the draft 3 years ago. So it's one of those things. Those concentration drops can happen.
That's what I was going to say. He has those, like, I'm trying to get up and go before I've got the ball. And so my hands are here, but my head is like here, and then it's dropped. Like, so that's those concentration drops. That's very fair.
Yeah. But for this question, best, day 2 value as far as wide receiver, with everything that's going on in the NFL, I don't know if some of these guys are going to be there. I think there's a chance they end up getting drafted at this point, because the Packers have, 2 first rounders. The Chiefs have 2. Right. I mean, Lions have 2. I don't know what's going to happen, but I will start with one of my favorites, and that's Christian Watson, 6'4", 208. I saw him up close and personal, and I know the tape at times is a little different, a little off, and I partially blame that on the Bison running so many different variables within their offense. I mean, one play they're running out of pistol, the next they're running out of empty, after that, they're running 3 straight plays out of the I formation.
Yeah, they're motioning into like I formation out of like a spread look. It's just so
Yeah,
wild.
it's very wild, but it's fun to watch. I enjoy watching them, obviously, but I've watched, tape from him from 2019 all the way through 2021, and he wasn't highly recruited, but this guy can play, and he's got great lower body flexibility. It was on display down at the Senior Bowl. He's got great length and athleticism for the position. He can win vertically down the field, and he shows it with his tracking ability. I always think of Jalen Tolbert as kind of like this center fielder tracking down fly balls, because that's what he does as an outside receiver. But Christian Watson can do it as well, and he even showed it with Trey Lance at times. But Watson understands the nuances of running routes and winning with leverage, and I think he just plays with good overall speed throughout the routes and just everything that he does. So I think when you think of the second round, you think of a top 50 pick. He's one of those guys that I think could become a future X receiver, but he's also versatile enough to play in the backfield, in the slot, and I think he's athletic enough to do it as well. So I would say he would present some of the best day 2 value. And then just real quick, probably another receiver that maybe won't get as much love because maybe it's just because the numbers didn't necessarily match up as well as, we all thought they would be, but that would be, Khalil Shakir out of Boise State. Nice. 6 foot 190. The drops are a big issue. He had 18 in his career, but he's a quick route runner with the ability, to win at all 3 levels of the field. And I think of when you think of like NFL ready guys with releases and how they can create separation, he's one of those guys that I think could win right away, despite maybe a little bit of a thinner frame and maybe not as much muscle to him as like a Burks or something like that. But he can just win at all 3 areas of the field. And I think he's probably going to be, maybe best utilized out of the slot, and more so will probably be a second or third receiver for a team if everything goes right. But again, with the quick releases and the polished route running that he has, it wouldn't surprise me if in another year or two, he becomes a 1,000-yard receiver and maybe even a 70, maybe a 60 to 70 catch guy as a rookie, just if he falls in the right spot. If he goes to Green Bay and he catches 4 passes like Amari Rodgers, it's a different story. But I think Khalil Shakir, Christian Watson, 2 of my favorites. And I'll turn it over to you, but I will kind of tee it up for, potential conversation on Velus Jones out of Tennessee.
Oh, Velus is someone who he caught my eye at the Senior Bowl and then started going back and watching the tape. And I like that he offers special teams value. I know this isn't on the field. I really like that he has a master's degree. I think that's cool. Like
he was catching passes from Sam Darnold.
Yeah. Like that's
wild.
Like he was in college for so long, and I know maybe his ceiling is a little more limited because of how older he is, but I think he presents a decently high floor with his skill set and his speed and his special teams contribution. Like he's going to make a team happy because he offers you depth in your wide receiver core, and then he offers you legitimate starting special teams ability, which cannot be undervalued in today's NFL. That's a fun name. For me, initially in day 2, and I'm going to kind of give 2 answers, but Jahan Dotson has creeped up. He initially was like my favorite day 2 wide receiver. Now I feel like he's starting to get pushed into the day 1 conversation for people, given
he's already there.
Yeah, right. Like he was fringe for me when we started. And now that we've got all these teams with wide receiver needs and multiple picks in the first round, now I'm thinking, like, to your point, I think there's legitimately like 6 to 8 receivers that could potentially go in the first round, like given need and given skill sets. So I've kind of pushed him into that day 1 category. So my day 2 value, I really like Watson. I thought it was a good call that you mentioned him. I like Sky Moore. I'm very intrigued by Sky Moore for a couple reasons. One, his athleticism. He's got good hips. Like you watch, he pulled this double move against UB where he gets to about 7 or 8 and he starts to sell that stop route. And he gets so low and sinks his hips and the corner bites all over it. And then he just bursts right back out of it. And he's at full speed in 3 steps and he leaves the corner in the dust. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
What also frustrates me with his tape is Western Michigan runs so much RPO.
Yeah.
So much RPO. And so the routes you really only saw from Sky Moore were 9 routes and then like free access RPO routes or some glance routes, like literally just like little slants and maybe a speed out or 2. And there's not a lot of route tree variability in his game.
Right.
That gives me some pause. But then what I did see from him, although it's not a huge sample size, I liked what I saw, that explosiveness. I liked how he showed up at the combine. He had a really good gauntlet drill along with Dotson, just smooth, fluid, catching the football, getting upfield. He looked good in drills. And you match that together with some of the tape, and I like it. And I also like how competitive he is at the catch point. He makes athletic, spectacular catches. He's a really good blocker. He's that guy which was nice to see because, again, they run so many RPOs. You'll see the handoff, and he's working to the third level. He'll block the corner and then get to the third level and chip hard on a safety. So he's going to contribute in multiple ways on a team. I like his speed. I like his burst. He's a big one for me. In addition to who you mentioned, I didn't want to double dip too much. I wanted to mention one thing on Watson. I love to see when he gets to full speed, you can see his track background kick in because he gets that forward lean and his heels of his feet are just kicking his butt. Like it's perfect. Like the form is beautiful. He just looks like 100-meter dash, like sprinter. It's gorgeous to watch him run. All those guys on day 2. And that's why I think from a Bills perspective, not going to get down that road too much, but I want a corner in round 1 because I think there's so much value to be had in round 2 and in round 3 from a receiver perspective for those of the Bills fans and Bills Mafia who want a receiver. There's a lot of potential and possibility there.
And you bring up a good point. Like if there's a run on receivers, you might have a very good cornerback fall in your lap. And if that's the case, you got to take that guy. I mean, you just do. I will go to the chat real quick. TP mentions a good thing here. John Mechie, good but not eye-popping speed like Jameson, but a more nuanced route runner. I'm not sure where they were at in the chat on that conversation, but he would be another guy as well on day 2. He might be round 4 because of everything, because of the injury and everything like that. But the guy battles. I mean, he's been through a lot of different injuries over the course of his career, and he's just one of those guys that I think if he didn't have some of the current injuries, but also just the injury history, we would be talking about him a lot more on day 2. But I mean, he's got a hell of a story on how he got to the league and things like that. Not as sure-handed as you'd want him to have, 15 career drops, a little bit limited with size and things like that. But Mechie's fun, and I'm with you on Sky Moore a little bit. I do wonder, does he fall into like that Dwayne Eskridge, Tutu Atwell buzz from last year where those guys were, a little bit smaller, and then they started getting like top 50 push buzz and first round potential buzz. Like the Chiefs made the trade today, and Sky Moore's instantly placed at the first round because of it, and way too high. And it's like maybe at like 55 or 60, sure, but
that's the value piece. Like if you're getting him in the first round, okay, cool, I guess. But for me, he's exactly like I like him in round 2. Like if the Bills are looking at him in the 50s in round 2 or even early round 3 for a team, like that's where I like that value because I think he has a lot of physical tools.
Right.
I do have questions about the route running piece because of, and maybe that's not his fault because of the offense that he was in, but I think that's a fair question to ask given everything together. Something I want to jump to real quick, Russ, it was just mentioned in that comment, and I see some other comments coming through, and I want to just get it out now. Jameson Williams, he's on the banner and the graphic for this episode. A lot of Bills fans love him. He's got juice. He's got speed for days. I have a certain feeling on Jameson Williams. I don't want to say it until you go, but I want to know what your thoughts are of Jameson Williams.
I feel like you're setting me up to either fail or for you to go for you to absolutely go insane.
I'll preface it a little. I think his fit for the Bills could be actually. I'll just go first then. I think his fit could be fun. I recognize the speed.
100%.
I especially if for any team, but especially for the Bills, you got a quarterback who could throw it a mile. So let's just do the proverbial run as fast as you can and see if Josh Allen can outthrow you. He's got juice for days. I love watching his special teams reps and seeing him at gunner. Like he gives his all for everything. When I watch him, and this was something that Eric Turner and I have had a lot of conversation about, I didn't see a lot from a route running perspective for him. Right. Now, granted, some of that is because of the offense he plays in and because of that speed. If you've got a plus attribute, if you throw 102 miles an hour, dude, forget the changeup and the slider. Just go out there and throw 102 and see what happens. But all you really see from him, and again, that's not bad. I get it. His skill set, you really just see nines, deep overs, benders, posts, drags, and maybe a couple speed outs. And then when I did see more like NFL type routes from him, quote unquote, I didn't see a ton of snap. I didn't see a ton of sharpness or suddenness. So the route running piece for me wasn't holistically there. That's why I don't have him as wide receiver 1. I recognize the fit. I like his fit for the Buffalo Bills. But I think a lot of Bills fans have him as just wide receiver 1. And I get it because of the speed and because of the highlight plays. But I think that he's a guy who people see the highlight plays and think he's this polished, sharp, crisp wide receiver. And I feel like that's a little misleading given what I've seen on the tape. But I recognize his skill set. I think it's a fit and I like it. But I'm not as high as everyone else given the route running piece that I think could be there, but that I didn't necessarily see. I pass the mic to you.
No, I mean, you bring up some very valid points. I thought there were some double moves on tape that were pretty impressive at times, where he was able to kind of convince defenders that he might break inside, outside, or vertically. But you're right. I mean, there's not as much as, the smooth hip flexibility, fluidness within his.
He does have like a little stiffness to him in an odd way.
But I think it's because he's so used to going full throttle, 100 miles per hour all the time. So he hasn't learned the nuances of it all. But I think with time, and especially within an offense where he's playing with Stephon Diggs and Gabriel Davis, and within this offense, it would be perfect. Now, Bills fans are saying he's wide receiver 1 because there's a legitimate chance that he's there at 25, and that makes them feel better about wide receiver 1 falling to their lap. But beyond that, I mean, yes, the speed is a real thing, and I love the fit in Buffalo for him. I mean, he won 2 state championships in track and field in high school. His personal record for the 100-meter dash was 10.68 seconds. It's one of those things where, I don't know if we'll ever see that speed again from him, just simply because, he'll need to probably add a little bit of muscle to his frame, but also he's coming off a torn ACL. But just the athleticism, explosiveness, the burst in the open field, he's one of those guys. In this offense, you can design stuff for him and it's going to lead to success. And I mean, imagine, I want to get on the whiteboard right now and draw it up, but imagine Stephon Diggs in the slot, Gabriel Davis in the other slot. And then on the outside, you have Isaiah McKenzie and Jameson Williams and freaking Dawson Knox running up the seam.
Playing games.
The 2 guys on the outside run vertical. The other 2 run underneath. Somebody's going to be open because you have to account
for all of it.
You have to account for all of it. And there's going to be too much going on. And I think you add him and it's so much fun. So
where does he rank for you in your upper echelon of wide receivers? I'm assuming he's one of your first round grades you have, but where does he fall into that top 6 for you?
Yeah. So he's wide receiver 4 for me.
Oh, me too. High five.
Yeah. See? Yeah. Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart can work together.
Right. Who would have thought? Look at this.
But no, it's it's Drake London, wide receiver 1, Chris Olave 2, Garrett Wilson 3, Jameson Williams 4.
Our top 4 is the same. I'm Wilson, London, Olave, Williams.
Yep. And then it goes Jahan Dotson 5 and Treylon Burks 6.
Dude. So, same group in the top 6. Look at us, man.
Let's go. Now, again, all those receivers got first round grades, but just one of those things. So
very fair, very fair. Yeah, I wanted to get.
I'm sorry, I was looking at the comment there from Jason Nowak. Fluidness, stiffness, question mark. I don't know if that's a question for us or if that's just to the chat.
I don't know, Jason. If you want to clarify your comment, feel free, and we'll take a stab at it as we start to circle back and then hit a couple more things here. So we talked about day 2 value. We talked about Jameson Williams. Let's talk about day 3. So rounds 4 through 7, guys in the later rounds. Again, good value in this draft, a bunch of different things to like. Here's where you start to look for guys with more specific skill sets, specific traits. Maybe you're looking at more of a fit, somebody who can be taken in round 4 or 5 or even later and could get starting reps or contribute because of the team that they get taken by. So there's a lot of specific things that go into a day 3 value. But what's a wide receiver for you that presents the best day 3 value?
Well, certainly Justin Ross. I mean, when you look at him out of Clemson, we'd be talking about this guy probably day 1 if he didn't get hurt. So he's
Mm.
just, a big bodied receiver, probably going to play as an X receiver. There's certainly some speed to his game, but I just think of, contested catches, 50-50 balls, stuff along the sidelines where, you're going to have to move the sticks. And if you have a younger quarterback, where they don't want to put the offense to where he's maybe throwing towards the middle of the field as much, something that, Jim Caldwell did with Matthew Stafford and Scott Linehan. These guys came in and they started working with Matt Stafford, and so much of his stuff where he made mistakes was in the middle of the field, and he was throwing, 15, 16 interceptions in a season. They started doing a lot of out routes and things towards the sidelines, back shoulder throws. Obviously having Calvin Johnson helps, but you have all this stuff to the sidelines, and it helped him grow as a quarterback. And I think that's the same thing that some of these teams with younger quarterbacks might end up doing, whether it is a Zach Wilson or a Justin Fields, or maybe it's one of these rookies. And I think, you even think of like Trevor Lawrence, some of the things that they've done with their wide receiver group, maybe he's a day 3 pick for them early just because of the chemistry, and they hope to maybe strike the fire that they once had at Clemson. So I think Justin Ross is somebody that could really be that sleeper pick on day 3 at this position that could find some positive results and positive production, especially if he's healthy.
I like that one. He's somebody who I think teams have forgotten about, and it's funny almost like how Pickens got hurt, but everybody has kind of been like, well, yeah, but Pickens would be sweet if he didn't get hurt. Let's move him up our boards. But people aren't like doing that for Ross, and he's kind of been like left in the dust a little bit. Like, I like that a lot from you. Good take. And I'm glad we didn't have the same guy for this one. Ross is on my list, but I didn't have him as my top for day 3. I got Alec Pierce, someone who I recently, Senior Bowl guy, did well at the Senior Bowl. I've fallen in love with 2 things from him. One, his size. He's a big wide receiver, 6'3", 213 pounds, big dude. I love his hand clearance at the line of scrimmage. He's got length, but he's also got quick hands, and he uses his hands both downfield and impress on the line of scrimmage, almost like a defensive end or a lineman keeping offensive lineman hands off of him. Like his hand quickness, I really like it. And he's almost kind of like I don't want this to be disrespectful, but he's almost like a Drake London light. He's not as good of a route runner as Drake London, because London to me is probably, he's arguably the best route runner in this entire class. And again, I really like Drake London. I don't think Pierce has that nuance to his route running, but he runs good enough routes. But he's Drake London light to me because of his size. He high points the football. He snatches the ball out of the air, learns from his mistakes. He makes those big boy catches. He had one against Notre Dame, clears the hands, gets upfield, and he does something that I really like that showed some intelligence for me. He's on the short side of the field and clears the hands and gets vertical up the boundary. But then as he beats the corner and he separates with his speed, which is legit, he gets back inside and gets to the numbers a little bit to give Desmond Ridder that space to make that over-the-shoulder throw to him and drop it in the bucket by the sideline, which I thought was smart. It showed intelligence. He had an average depth of target of 17 this past year, big play receiver. I think you can line him up at the X. You can line him up in the slot. He can block for you a little bit. He's a willing blocker. And I think he's got enough raw traits and skill set that he could provide you some use in 2022. But then if you coach him up, you add some polish, you add some refinement, I think he could start to be something for you down the road.
I hate pro comparisons and all of that stuff, but I'm going to just throw one out there for everybody. And so Alec Pierce combine 6'3", 211, arm length 33, ran a 4.41, 10-yard split was 158. And his broad jump was 129, and his 3-cone drill was 7.13.
Okay.
The next player, 6'3", 217, 32.5-inch arms, 10-inch hands, 10-yard split is 1.5, ran a 4.51, broad jump was 123, and his 3-cone drill was 7.03. I don't know if you wrote all those numbers down, but can you guess that player?
Are they coming out in this draft?
No, this player from 2008.
Oh, damn, no. Who is it?
Jordy Nelson.
Wowzers. I love Jordy Nelson coming out of Kansas State. Like I was growing up, for some reason, like Kansas State, like when Darren Sproles was there and then Jordy Nelson was there, like they had these sweet dudes that I would pick them in NCAA and beat people with Kansas State who didn't know about Kansas State because they had these studs. Cool comp. Jordy Nelson played so much faster than 4.51.
Right. And
Wow,
I
I
mean,
like
I
that
don't know.
comp.
Some of the comps for Alec Pierce are, DJ Chark, Justin Jefferson, Terrace
That's
Marshall,
wild.
Devontae Parker, which I could see.
I could see
Chark,
the
I could,
Parker one. I could see the Chark one too.
yeah, but I think a Jordy
Bigger than
Nelson,
Chark.
and I think that one's pretty good. So
Ooh, I like the Jordy Nelson one.
we'll see.
I'm going to pull up this one super chat from Thomas Burke. Thank you so much, Thomas. Appreciate your donation. Russ, I'm going to defer to you on this one before I go. He says, can Traylon Burks fall to pick 25? That's his man, and he's got to have his jersey. So what do you think? Can Burks fall to 25?
Yeah, he certainly can fall to 25. I mean, there's a chance he goes at, like, let's say 22 to the Packers. There's obviously a chance that he could go 21 to the Patriots. I mean, he could go anywhere. And honestly, like we kind of mentioned, it's pick your flavor with this group. And there's six first round receivers, six solid guys. And we might see only 5 taken and one guy falls out of the first round. It's possible. I mean, I didn't think Elijah Moore was going to fall out of the first round last year. We didn't think DK Metcalf was going to fall out of the first round a few years back. Treylon Burks could be the odd man out because of just some of the nuances to the route running and things like that. These other guys do better, but Burks is a versatile weapon, big bodied guy, and has the play speed and kind of has that catch radius and just everything that you look for a true number one receiver. So yeah, he could be there at 25. I just don't know if the Bills would necessarily take him. Because when you think of just kind of their offense, I mean, they do kind of have that bigger receiver in Gabriel Davis,
Right.
but they could go that route. I don't know. We'll see.
I think that's a fair point. Like the fit of Burks into this offense. And then, yeah, him as a prospect, like I love him at the catch point. I like how big he is, physical he is. I like that he's like a runaway train, like we spoke about earlier. Once he gets going, he's hard to stop. But I think there are questions about, and I think there's legitimate questions around his ability to separate, his route tree. He doesn't really have much other than he was more just like, hey, just go downfield. We're going to throw it up and see what happens. And I question what he can do at the next level. But his skill set is intriguing. His traits are intriguing.
Yeah.
And I also like that question because it leads in perfect to our last topic that we're going to dive into before we get you out of here. You're good to go for this last topic?
Yeah, we should be fine.
Appreciate you. You're a good man. So we talked about it a little bit in answering that question of if Burks is there at 25. But let's talk about which receivers in this class fit the Bills offense. We talked about Jameson Williams, but let's phrase this in kind of like a different way. And if Jameson Williams is your answer, cool. Let's also talk about someone else. Who is, if you could take 2 wide receivers right now, whether they're first round guys, or ideally 1 first round, 1 a little later in the draft, if you could take some receivers, 2 receivers, and you think they're a perfect chess piece fit for the Bills offense, who would they be?
Well, obviously Jameson, but we've already talked about him.
Is Jameson Williams the top one? Like if you could pick 1 receiver in this class that you would put on the Bills right now, would it be Jameson Williams?
I'll go with the guy that I'll talk about in the first round.
Okay, cool.
Jameson would, yes, certainly be kind of like that dreamy pick, but Chris Olave would be kind of that one as far as just the natural route running, the release package. I just think of him and Stephon Diggs opposite of each other, or even on the same side of the field. I mean, good luck to defenders. I mean, it might be like Swiss cheese on the field, on that side of the field, to be completely honest. But
yeah,
he's got quick feet, fluid athlete. It helps him create separation and outrun defenders. A little bit of a thin frame, but when I talked to Cam Taylor-Britt down at the Senior Bowl, he said he was like, I had nightmares about having to match up against Chris Olave. Awesome. So it's one of those things where like he put fear in his defenders in the Big Ten, and you love his skill set. I mean, he's obviously fast. He's a basketball, baseball, track and field guy. So I think if he ends up being there, I don't think he will be, but if he was there, I think, Bean and this whole regime would be really excited about him. And then the other one would just be Calvin Austin. When you think of the loss of, I'm sorry, I'm stealing your answers, but
no, you're great.
You lose Cole Beasley. You think of just that slot receiver that brings so much as far as versatility and doing so many different things. Like I compare him to Tariq Cohen coming out. And I don't know if he's not going to probably play running back, but he probably could if you asked him to. Below average size for the position, doesn't have
his route
size.
running is so underestimated and so
it
overlooked.
He's a very shifty route runner. He can create after the catch. And actually, despite only being listed at 5'9", he plays a lot bigger than what he's physically kind of capable of doing. Like there's times he high points the football and comes down with some sick grabs. So he's one of those guys that I think what he did at the Senior Bowl with route running and all of that, he would be a home run for the Bills. So that would be kind of like that day 2, day 3 guy as well. And obviously Chris Olave. But I appreciate you bringing me on. I would sit here and talk with everybody, but I'm going to go jump on this Lions thing. It's a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to tomorrow. Little preview for tomorrow. This man is going to be joining me, I believe, to do some live mock draft stuff on the Cover One NFL Draft Podcast here on YouTube. So we'll get you covered on that tomorrow, 7:40. If StreamYard messes up, I will be chugging something tomorrow. But appreciate everybody. I'll talk to you all tomorrow. Appreciate you. Peace out, brother.
Godspeed, Russ. I appreciate you, man. One of the best, genuinely, in our community, not just for Cover One. I mean, for football. Like the dude has a whiteboard behind him. You can see there. Like he talks ball. He's smart. He knows his stuff. He knows the X's and O's. He knows the big picture. All of those things. And yeah, he had to skedaddle because he got another appearance tonight, which we would have been fine in making and everything completing with him had we not started a little late tonight because of the technical difficulties. But nonetheless, we're going to continue to ride here on Disguise Coverage. Yeah, as Matt says, Russ is great. Also, bear with me. I know StreamYard is also updated. I know you see the box here. Normally, it's full screen. Now it's a little different. Got my One Pie logo as a little a cutout. The Disguise Coverage logo up top's a little cutout as well. That's going to be fixed for next week. But bear with me. A lot of things going on with StreamYard tonight. Not pleased, but we got to power through because we're professionals, and that's what we do. I want to touch on this topic as well. I know Russ spoke. Let's focus on the Bills piece of this, right? Russ is a national draft scout. He covers everything. So I wanted to talk about wide receivers with him from the perspective of, bringing this group to the Bills' doorstep and to your doorstep. This is a Buffalo Bills podcast, although I like to hit on everything for football in general, but this is a Bills podcast with Bills flavor. So bringing him on, I wanted to hit this class as a whole because it's a very deep class. Oh, good question, Ron. I'm going to get to that one in a minute. I like this class. And I wanted to touch on Jameson Williams again. I think he'd be a great fit in this Bills offense. I mentioned earlier, his speed is so legit. Like, what offense wouldn't he fit with, right? But especially with a quarterback of Josh Allen's capability and just a guy with an arm, a guy who can sling it a mile, throw from different platforms, and you just need somebody who can get open and get you a bucket. Jameson Williams has that for days. He's not wide receiver 1, but I like his fit a lot. I also like Garrett Wilson's fit. He's my wide receiver 1. I think he can fit with anyone because he's fantastic. I like the Olave pick that Russ mentioned, and not to drill on that because he hit all the points. Olave is this really cool prospect who has more speed than people think. And I know some of the comments in the chat were he's only being talked about because of his 40 time at the combine. That is not true. He's got hands. He's got route running. He's got nuance. He's got speed. He can blow by defenders with just speed, or he can win with his route running. To me, he's more like a combination of Garrett Wilson and Jameson Williams, from the sharpness and suddenness of Garrett Wilson, but he's got more of that longer speed and that blow-by game that Jameson Williams has. I really like Olave's fit in this offense, and the scheme ability will be tremendous. And I love Russ's point about Calvin Austin. Calvin Austin gets a lot of love because of his speed. People need to recognize the route running of Calvin Austin, and he's got speed, but he runs quick, sharp, sudden routes. He's somebody who I really like because I'm going to bring this back to Ned's comment from earlier in that super chat because I knew I was going to come back to it. I can't scroll back far enough to see it and pull it up, but I know, I can. I lied. Ned's question way back in the beginning was, from your analysis and the variables mentioned, how does Cole Beasley compare to Crowder? And that's part of the reason why I like Austin's fit in this offense, or somebody even later with Kyle Phillips from UCLA, or even Jahan Dotson. I think you're just going to have to reach for him in the first based on where he's going to go. What the Bills have at wide receiver, and this can't be understated going into the draft, the Bills bringing back Isaiah McKenzie and the Bills signing Jamison Crowder, those are good moves, right? The Bills have done at the receiver position what they've done at other positions throughout the entire tenure of Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott, which is set themselves up for success through free agency, bring in players to plug the holes, and then that way when they go into the draft, they don't have any one glaring need. Right now, I think if we all had to talk about it, corner is the big glaring need. The Bills have set themselves up to definitely take a corner in this draft, maybe even 2 early, given the arms race that's happening in the AFC, but just their roster construction. Tre'Davious White's coming off of that ACL injury. Levi Wallace is gone. Right now, you're looking at Cam Lewis and Dane Jackson as your starting corners right now. They're going to upgrade corner 2 in the draft. But other than that, maybe guard as well, depending on what happens with Ryan Bates. What you've got with a lot of these positions on the Bills, and receiver's a good example of it, if Olave falls to 25, or Jameson Williams is there, or Garrett Wilson, or if they really like Dotson, or whoever, right? If there's a receiver at 25 that they really want, the Bills can go and grab him because they can be an upgrade to McKenzie and Jamison Crowder. Or if they want to go with another position, they don't have to stretch for wide receiver because having Crowder and having McKenzie in that wide receiver group, it's still a high enough floor that you can get the job done. So the Bills have set themselves up for success in this draft and have the opportunity that if one of those receivers fall, they can pull the trigger. And if one of those receivers don't fall, cool, they can grab another position in the first round or second round and then grab that value when it comes later in the draft, which is something I really like. And answer this question from Ned, it ties into why I like Calvin Austin. I think the Bills need a long-term answer in the slot from a route running perspective. I'm interested to see what McKenzie does if he gets more opportunity, if he's not buried on the depth chart, that whole conversation that we've seen and heard. But I like his niche on this team. I like using him in the jet sweeps and the orbit motions. I like lining him up in the backfield as a running back. I like running him on flat routes and swing routes out of the backfield. I like him in the screen game. I like the variety of things he can do. And not that he can't do that if he's the starting, wide receiver 3 or full-time slot. But I also think he has his limitations. He hasn't been given a big contract for a reason. He keeps coming back on these deals for a reason. And I like his fit with the Bills, but I think you could upgrade from him still. Jameson Crowder, only here on a 1-year deal. And this is where it comes in as well, right? Bees compares to Crowder. I like Jameson Crowder. I don't think he has the suddenness or the burst in his route running that Cole Beasley has. I think he's better after the catch. He's better in his shiftiness with the ball in his hands. But if you're talking separation, Cole Beasley was 9th in separation, average yards of separation last year. And that was with a rib injury that caused him to not really be able to move his upper body. Cole Beasley was underrated. And I know there's a lot of, whether it's the love for McKenzie or the anger with the vaccination stuff for Cole Beasley, I think Cole Beasley is being undervalued and underrated by a lot of Bills fans. Cole Beasley was very good. And Jameson Crowder, I don't think has the separation versus man coverage that Cole Beasley had. Cole Beasley still had that sharpness, that suddenness, that shake. He could pull those basketball moves that Russ was talking about earlier, right? He could just cross up defenders at multiple points at the line of scrimmage, 5 yards downfield, 10 yards downfield. He had some jump and he had some juice in those legs. I don't think Crowder has that versus man coverage. Now versus zone, he understands how to read coverage. He can leverage space. He knows how to sit in the hole and find the opening. Like, he's going to be a good safety valve and release option for Josh Allen. But yeah, as Rich says, Beasley was very good. Those sharp cuts were good. And to go back to Ned's point, Ron, to your point as well, I'm surprised he hasn't been signing it as well. I think he might be waiting for a perfect scenario. You never know as well. Looking at wide receiver, why I like Calvin Austin and his fit for the Bills. The long-term answer at slot, I don't think it's going to be Jameson Crowder. Maybe it's Isaiah McKenzie, but I still don't know. And I know that slot receiver role is going to be important. Whether or not the Bills play more 12 personnel, which I think they will this year with the signing of O.J. Howard, but even if they do, he's only here for 1 year as of right now. You don't know what 12 personnel looks like going forward. You don't know what the wide receiver room is going to look like going forward. To get another quality young guy in for that slot role, in a starting role, given how much 11 personnel the Bills have played over the years, granted, it may change with Ken Dorsey. It may change because of the addition of O.J. Howard. They might shift to more 12 personnel and some different things. But Calvin Austin represents someone who adds that speed, dynamic, and athleticism that the Bills could use, but he also adds some of that route running and polish out of the slot that I think could really help. And that's why he's a receiver in this class who I really like, who could fit the Bills offense, in addition to the, the top guns at the top, the Jameson Williams and the Olaves and the Wilsons and the Dotsons of the world. I like Jahan Dotson. He was my ideal round 2 pick back in like February or January. And now it seems that he continues to go up and up and up, and rightfully so. He had a great combine. He's athletic. People are realizing, what he's capable of. I wanted to go to some of the other comments here as we start to get into the back end. Autumn asked this question: what about Hodgins and Stevenson? Do they have any hope of playing, or will they just get kicked out by someone we draft in this class? And who also, and Andrew kind of had a similar question as well. I want to bring up these both at the same time. What are your thoughts on the wide receivers on the roster already not mentioned? I would love for them to be an answer. I really liked Isaiah Hodgins coming out of college. His route running is still really good. He's got good feet. He's got good separation at multiple points in the route stem. He's a little challenged athletically, but he's got length. He's got great hands. He's good in the red zone. I would really, really, really like for him to be something. I don't know if he can be because we haven't seen anything from him. So I don't want to put too many eggs in that basket because, last year we kind of did this with Dawson Knox, right? It was like, well, maybe Knox can take this leap. And he did, which was awesome. But you at least saw more glimpses of it. He was already a multi-year starter, and you could see him maybe putting some things together. We haven't seen anything from Isaiah Hodgins. I was hoping preseason last year would be awesome for him. He got hurt. It was not. I'm hoping this year with Case Keenum there, right? That's a backup QB who knows what he's doing, who's going to play a lot in the preseason, somebody who's capable of feeding a receiver, right, in those preseason games. I'm hoping Hodgins could make a jump. I really like him too. I liked his skill set and his route running, especially coming out of college. I don't know how many eggs we can put in that basket. Also in that conversation is Marquez Stevenson. I think he's another one that if you're projecting him to do work, it's based on pure projection because we haven't seen anything in a meaningful NFL game other than special team work to indicate he's ready to become a solid contributor. I liked the pick last year. I liked it more for special teams value than I did from a receiver perspective. Could he contribute? Yes, he's got speed for days. There's no denying that whatsoever. He's shifty, but I like him more in the special teams world. And again, like what we've seen from Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott, if you are the primary returner, they don't like to really use you in the offense. We saw it with Isaiah McKenzie. And even when Micah Hyde was going back there for punts, that was more of a stopgap because they didn't have consistency with what was going on in the punt return game. If Stevenson is the returner, which I think he will be because I think they want to incorporate McKenzie more into the offense. And because if you're the returner, you don't get incorporated that much into the offense, I think McKenzie will not be the returner. Also combined with the fact that McKenzie has ball security and decision-making issues when it comes to the return game. But I think you'll see Stevenson at returner, and he's going to get his biggest shot there. I like his speed. I don't know how many eggs you can put into his basket or Isaiah Hodgins. And then if you're looking at the rest of the guys, you're looking at like Tanner Gentry and guys like that, and that you're even more improving at that point. And then also to go to Autumn's question, to kind of wrap this all up together with that point, or will they just get kicked out by someone we draft in this class? I think if you take a receiver in the first 3 rounds, those guys kind of get kicked down the depth chart even further. Or even if you take a guy in the 4th round, if you get someone like an Alec Pierce, I think that's a threat to their spot. Maybe a little more questionable, but if the Bills get a receiver in one of the first 3 rounds, and again, there's a lot, like this wide receiver class is loaded at the top, but also top to bottom, right? Like you can get a quality receiver in round 3 who's going to give you contribution in this upcoming year of 2022, let alone what they can be going forward, right? So there's a lot of contributions that you're going to see from wide receivers coming in 2022. I think if the Bills take one in the first 3 rounds, those guys, their hope of playing goes down a little more. They're going to be fighting more for a roster spot than they already are, right? I think the top 4 isn't locked right now, but I mean, Diggs, Davis, Crowder, McKenzie. If you had a top 3 pick, or top, a day 1 or day 2 pick to that wide receiver room, he's slotting in somewhere in that top 5. Those guys are moving down even further, and that is going to be a tough thing for them to kind of overcome. I love this comment from TP. I wanted to bring it up earlier. He says the drop off from round 1 to round 2 is much steeper for corner than for wide receiver. I agree. And that's why I want a corner in round 1. I'm very comfortable getting a corner in round 1 and then coming back with a Christian Watson or Sky Moore or Calvin Austin, or if Dotson's still there in round 2, I don't think he's going to be there when the Bills pick. They'd have to trade up to get him, I think. But coming away with a guy like that, there's a lot of caliber of quality NFL reps that can be had in round 2, in round 3. And that's where that drop off and that, steepness in the class comes through. Ooh, Silas. What up, Silas? Regular contributor and guest here in the chat. I love this take. Roger McCreary, Christian Watson, Alec Pierce, Alani Taylor, Calvin Austin, Caleb Evans, Kalen Bars. I'll take any combination of these guys. Very fair. Oh, also Ron had, where was that comment? Ron, I know you asked about Bo Melton. I really like him with the ball in his hands, and Silas likes him too. I remember that from last week as well. I like the ball in his hands. He's similar to a Wan'Dale Robinson for me. I like the dual purpose threat that they offer with guys who can come out of the backfield and also receiving ability. I like the speed. I like the athleticism. I like the juice that he has in his game for Melton and what he could potentially add in the mismatch potential that you could create. Again, much like Wan'Dale Robinson. Like, I think Robinson has more pop and running back in him than Melton does, but I like the chess match that you can have with those guys. Now, whether or not they fit the bills, given the landscape of this team and the receiver group as is, that's another question. And then another question here from Ned. I appreciate you, Ned. He says, thanks, Ant. Great analysis. Agree completely for comment earlier. Thank you very much, Ned. But he says, in your opinion, is cornerback looking more attractive at 25 than wide receiver? Yes. I am okay if the Bills took Jameson Williams or Olave or Wilson at 25. I don't think Wilson's going to be there. I don't think Olave is going to be there. Jameson Williams might. I don't think he's getting out of the first round. If the Bills don't take him, I think the Chiefs are going to take him because they need to replace Tyreek Hill, and he's got that real speed that fits seamlessly into their offense. But I do think corner is looking more attractive. My dream right now, still to this very moment, as of right now, as we sit here on Wednesday, March 23rd at 8:29 p.m., give me Roger McCreary, give me Trent McDuffie, give me Kyler Gordon. If Andrew Booth falls, if Derek Stingley falls, give me that first-round corner at pick 25. I want it. I need it. I think it unlocks so much for this defense, as I've said multiple times on the show throughout this offseason. The Bills need that corner. I actually want multiple corners now at this point. Give me 2 corners in the first 4 rounds or first 5 rounds. Give me 2 corners, a receiver, a running back, and a guard. Give me that. But as of right now, Bills need a round 1 corner, and so corner is looking more attractive to me at 25 than wide receiver. I want to talk about Kevin Smith says, scout Watson, please. He does jet sweeps, knack for getting open. He can play the slot and bounce outside. Oh, I've already scouted Christian Watson. I like him. I didn't want to double dip too much on prospects, but Russ, I don't know if you're here for it earlier, Kevin, but Russell Brown, my guest earlier, spoke on Watson and a lot of the things he can do. He's super intriguing. He had a really great week at the Senior Bowl. He showed some nuance. He showed some athleticism and body lean and bend. And yeah, I like that all combined with the physical measurables. He's that guy that you hope that you can polish and shine up and add that refinement to. And if you can, goodness gracious, like, he's got size and speed for days. He showed it during the Senior Bowl. He showed it during the combine. Like, he's got game speed. He's got good 40 times speed. And you add that with the size and stature and frame. Like, Christian Watson is a very, 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 very intriguing one. Comment here from Michael, with the wide receiver contract market exploding, you can't have too many good wide receivers. I completely agree. And yeah, Dwight here saying, watch out for Alec Pierce from Cincinnati. He's an obvious deep threat. No, he's got some speed for days. He's got size. I like his hand clearance. I mentioned that earlier. I like that as well. Andrew says Gordon round 1. Yes, I am a big Kyler Gordon fan. I like his game a lot and everything that he can do. Andrew says, what about Elam? I'm not too high on Kyer Elam. I like his traits. I did not like his tape last year. I know there was a lot of stuff in flux going on at Florida. That Alabama tape is real rough. He's got some really good coverage reps in that game. He's got some really bad coverage reps. He's also horrible in his tackling against Bama. I watched a couple other games and I wasn't wowed by him or enough to make me feel better. Like, for example, the first game I watched for Cam Taylor-Britt was against Oklahoma, and it was bad. I didn't like it. Then I watched more games, and I liked it a lot more. And I was like, okay, maybe that's an outlier. I didn't see much of that for Elam. His 2020 games I recognize are better. And again, there's a lot of nonsense going on with Florida last year in terms of a lack of consistency from like a leadership perspective, from like a coaching staff piece and an organizational standpoint. And I know he's got the traits and the size and the speed and all that kind of stuff. I'm not as high on him. I'd be okay if the Bills took him in round 2. Or even round 3. I don't think he's going to last till round 3, but I'm not as high on him. He's not in my top 6 for corners. I'll say that piece right there, given what the Bills have there. Oh, I'm with you, Silas. Mine's the first part. Silas says if Elam is available at 25, I'd take him. I personally would not. But you saying I personally want McCreary, yeah, I would take that all day. I also wanted to mention some pieces. You know, we talked about corners a lot here, and we talked about just where things are with the Bills, and things have changed in this AFC landscape. The moves today, and that's what I kind of want to talk about, like the AFC East moves, or the way the AFC East is shaking out now with the Tyreek Hill trade and all the moves that the Dolphins have made, but also how the AFC landscape as a whole has changed. Like, I don't think the Chiefs are suddenly weak and this super, team that has kind of fallen off and taken a hit. Like, the loss of Tyreek Hill is very legitimate, and they've lost some pieces, but oh man, like the AFC East just got a lot tougher with the addition of Tyreek Hill for Miami, the signing of Terron Armstead, the additions that they had in the backfield. If Mostert can stay healthy, Chase Edmonds is a good dude. You got a lot of potential with this Miami team. Oh, timeout. Super chat. You guys know the rules. Appreciate you, Silas, for your donation and for your comment. Silas says, you sure we don't need to take a 1 tech still? Ridgeway may be available in the 4th. Also, aside from corner, shouldn't we look at safety, Cross, and Woods? Really good question, Silas. Here's the thing. I'm torn on the back half. I'll answer the first part first because we'll go in order here. I think with 1 tech, Daquan Jones is going to be solid with that. Then you've got Jordan Phillips. You got Settle, who can play it a little bit, but he's more a 3 tech. I think with Jones and Phillips and even Elianku, who I really like. Elianku, I thought played well when he got reps and snaps last year. I think we're okay there, given what the rest of the makeup of this team is. Now, if the Bills came out and at 25 they decided they wanted to take Jordan Davis, or if he was there, or they wanted to take Devontae Wyatt, I understand. I know people think Wyatt is more of a 3. I think he can dabble in that 1 tech world. He lines up at nose, at 2 tech, at 2I, at 3, at 1. I've seen him line up in a 5. Like, he can do a lot of things on that defensive line. That Georgia team was loaded. But I don't think the need for a 1 tech, given what the Bills have done on the defensive line, trumps the needs for corner, interior offensive line, and wide receiver for me personally. And then safety is a real interesting one. It's something that's been in my mind for the last couple of years. There's no safety depth, proven safety depth behind Hyde and Poyer. If you like DeMar Hamlin, cool, I like him. If you like Jaquan Johnson, cool, I do like him as well. Hyde and Poyer do a ton for this team, right? And you have to start looking for their heir apparent at some point now. I still think they have another 2-3 years of prime football left in them, but you have to start looking at safety at one point. Lewis Seen is somebody who I like. I know people like, I would say David in the comments just said there, Nick Cross is my man. There's several safeties in this class I like. I've only watched 1 game of Cross so far. I haven't done my full breakdown on safeties yet. I watched 1 game of Cross, watched him against Ohio State. Didn't love him. Didn't not like him, but I didn't love him. I wasn't wowed. So I got to break down that safety class in full. But I know there's a lot of guys, even the concept of Dax Hill, people talking about him, that he could be a corner, but you also play him at safety and slot and all these different maneuverable chess pieces. I know some people are on that train of you draft Dax Hill and put him at corner this year, and then you shift him to safety once Hyde and Poyer start to step away a little bit. That's an option. But I think we have to look at safety at some point. I don't know if it's this year, given that the Bills are really going for it all, it seems, in 2022, and you want to kind of maximize that value. But I think it's a long-term discussion that needs to be had, because the Bills don't have a lot of proven depth at safety, and they need to address it at some point, because you don't want to have just a steep decline and kind of fall off the mountaintop. If anything should happen to Hyde or Poyer, or if they start to step away a little bit. We take a quick drink of water here. But yeah, really good question though, Silas. Again, bringing it back to anybody questions, thoughts, comments, concerns on anything, keep throwing them into the chat. We're going to keep rolling here a little bit more as we start to wind down here, but we're still going to go for a little bit more, seeing as how we started late and some chaos that happened in this episode to start. The AFC landscape has changed. The Chargers have had a tremendous offseason. The Raiders, I know everybody likes to make jokes about the Raiders, but Carr is a better quarterback than people think and people know. And Devontae Adams, Darren Waller, and Hunter Renfrow are a real legitimate triplet set out there. Denver's wide receiver group and weapon group as a whole, Sutton, Patrick, Jerry Jeudy, Javonte Williams coming out of the backfield. Now they have Russell Wilson. They've got one of the best safeties in the game in Justin Simmons. They have one of the best young corners in the game in Patrick Surtain Jr. Now they've got Randy Gregory to pair with Bradley Chubb up front. The AFC West is going to be a dogfight. It's nuts. The Chiefs have kind of taken a step down with what they've lost, but now the Dolphins have ramped their game up. We don't know what we're going to get out of the AFC North, but the Ravens were decimated by injuries and COVID and a whole bunch of bad luck last year. They're going to be back up. The Bengals went to the Super Bowl last year. The AFC is a dogfight, right? A real tough murderer's row of a conference. And now we've had this weird dynamic in relation to the Bills because the Kansas City Chiefs got worse today. The Miami Dolphins got better this day. And it's kind of like, which do you prefer in this double-edged sword? Because you have to see Miami twice a year. You only have to see Kansas City once guaranteed in the regular season. The Chiefs were the bigger Super Bowl obstacle to the Bills. They've gone down. But the Dolphins are more of the day-to-day rival for the Bills. They've gotten better. I know everybody's going to insert the Tua jokes with, well, he's not going to be able to throw downfield to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and so on and so forth. But they've really stocked up this offseason. Again, I only mentioned some of it, but the offensive line having Armstead and Connor Williams now, and you've paired Hill and Jalen Waddle. That might be the fastest wide receiver duo in the entire NFL. They got speed for days. They brought back Gesicki. They've got Edmonds and Mostert coming out of the backfield. They added Cedric Wilson, who I didn't like as much when I watched the tape, but he's got some ability that you can work into that offense. And again, he's going to be the third, actually probably fourth option behind Hill, Waddle, and Gesicki. Miami's going to be tough. And I'm not saying that they're going above, but it's crazy how this AFC landscape changed in the blink of an eye, especially with how fast it went today, right? Like the news came out, it was like, oh, the Chiefs have given Tyreek Hill permission to seek a trade. And it was just like, oh, okay, we'll see what happens. And then like 2 hours later, he was on the Miami Dolphins and they're going for it. Got a super chat. You guys know the rules. We got to stop. Silas says, are the Chiefs winning their division? I still think to be the man, you got to beat the man. The Chiefs are still the man in the AFC West. But as of right now, as we sit today before we've gotten to the draft, I think it's tough to say that for the Chiefs. Now, I will say they've got 2 first-round picks. I think they're going to be able to fill a decent amount of the holes and needs that they have. I'm still putting them as the favorites to win the AFC West right now. I'm not betting against Patrick Mahomes and that squad right now, and I think they're going to fill a decent amount of their needs in the draft. Now, it's hard to replace Tyreek Hill. He's one of the best receivers in the NFL. But I think they can have a pretty solid shot at that, given the picks they have and given how the first round should shake out. I really like what the Chargers did. The only thing holding the Chargers back last year was their defense. And Brandon Staley, kind of one of the leaders in the tight front, the type of alignment and defense that he likes to play, what he used in Los Angeles with the Rams 2 years ago when he was the defensive coordinator, that made them the number one defense in the entire NFL. He couldn't really play that like he wanted to with the Chargers because they didn't have the horses up front to execute that. Now you've added Sebastian Joseph Day, who was with him in Los Angeles, who was perfect for that scheme they want to run. They've added Khalil Mack. They've added J.C. Jackson. They've added Austin Johnson, a defensive tackle who I wanted the Bills to grab. They've got versatility and ability on the defensive side of the ball, and we already know what they can do on the offensive side of the ball. Herbert's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. They brought Mike Williams back. You got Keenan Allen. You got Austin Eckler. The Chargers are going to be a problem. Denver, I think, is also going to be a problem. I'm still going to go with, to beat the man. or to be the man, you got to beat the man. So I'm still picking Kansas City as of right now, but it's not guaranteed whatsoever. And that's also based on my faith that they'll address a lot of their holes and needs in the draft. We'll circle back on that as we get closer to the regular season, because Kansas City definitely has work to do if they want to maintain their seat at the top of the AFC West. It's just crazy, like how you guys have all mentioned in the chat, like it's crazy what happened to the AFC, like just this arms race that it reminds me of the NBA in the Western Conference in the NBA several years ago, where even like the 8 seed for years and years and years, the 8 seed would be like the Spurs and they'd be like 15 games over 500. And the West was just this dogfight week in and week out. And like just to get to the finals, you had to go through hell in the Western Conference in the NBA. And like now the AFC is like that. To get out of the AFC, that's going to be hard. And that's another reason why, not just because of what we've seen with this arms race, but why I think the Bills need more defensive firepower in the secondary, i.e. corner 2. You got to be able to run with these horses, right? You need that scheme versatility. You need to play rock, paper, scissors, shoe, like I've said on this show many times and in this offseason. And yeah, Rich, as Rich says, it's going to make for great football. It is going to make for great football. So many good games. And comment here from TP says the Bills' path to the number 1 seed got a lot better this offseason. Yes, it did. The AFC West is going to eat each other a little bit, so they all beat up on each other, and you hope that the Bills can come out clean. The AFC North should probably beat up on each other. The Browns and Bengals and Ravens, and you got to think the Steelers will take some games from those guys. They'll beat up on each other a little bit. The AFC South is one that I think Tennessee's the clear favorite there, although Matt Ryan maybe brings up the Colts a little bit, and the Colts make it hard on the Titans. And then Miami stepped up. Miami might make it tough on the Bills. I still think the Bills are the favorite in the AFC East and one of the best teams in football, but Miami might make things difficult for the Buffalo Bills. Like they believe, we'll see what they got going on, but they added a lot of firepower to their team this offseason. And, you know, it's a changing dynamic. The AFC East got harder. The AFC got harder. We're in for a hell of a year. I'm going to change the banner and throw up the toodles, you guys. And that's because we're starting to wind down here on the show. I took another drink of water there. I appreciate you guys. Tonight's episode started a little rough because of the glitches that was happening with StreamYard, and we couldn't start on time, but the chat has been great. The energy has been great. Man, I appreciate you guys. Like I say every single week, thank you so much for riding with me on another episode of Disguise Coverage. Everybody was here in the live chat for this entire episode. Thank you so much for joining me. While you're here right now, we still got a good amount of heads here in this chat. Please drop a like on this YouTube video. Appreciate you, Michael. Michael saying toodles, and please drop a like. It goes a very long way towards helping myself and the entire Cover One team to track and trend and get in front of more eyes and ears. If you are watching this later, that's fine. Please drop a like while you're checking that out, right? If you are on any one of the podcasting apps or platforms, please rate and review and subscribe to Disguise Coverage. That goes a very long way. I know it's corny and shelling out for stuff like that, but again, all the likes and the thumbs up and the subscriptions and the comments and the alerts and notifications, it all affects the algorithms and the stuff that allow us to continue to grow and, again, get in front of more eyes and ears. So please rate and review and subscribe to Disguise Coverage and to Cover One. Drop a like and a thumbs up. I appreciate you, Rich. Rich saying, thank you for your time, Anthony. We appreciate you as well. That means a lot, man. Thank you very much. Oh, there's good stuff coming through. Andrew saying, thanks as always. Top notch. Appreciate you. Ned saying, excellent. And you were excellent again, Ned. Again, I've been podcasting for a decent amount of time now, but I used to be audio only. When I came to Cover One, I went into the live stream type of thing, and the live stream and the engagement in the chat is what makes it so much better. Like being able to engage with you guys regularly, especially with the type of group that we have in here. A lot of you guys are regulars, and the conversation that gets driven from the chat, thought-provoking, engaging, just really good chat, a really good, healthy back and forth dialogue, good questions. I say it every week. I wish that we could just do shows where I just come in and I don't have anything planned and we just sit and we talk for an hour and a half and we just have a conversation based off of what's going on in the live chat. And I just let you guys ask questions and comments and we just have a back and forth for an hour and a half. I think that might be on the docket, especially when we get into the doldrums of the off season when it's tough to find content and stuff like that. So maybe do something like that. But again, whether you rode with me live here on this episode, whether you're watching later, whether you're listening later, whatever. I appreciate you guys so very much for your view, your listen, your download, your like, your subscription, anything and everything. I appreciate you guys more than you could possibly know. So thank you very much. All the kind words coming through. Oh, I want to grab this one because this means a lot. Coach Chapman says, "Ant, you give legit detailed content through video study and you bring great entertainment value, fun and educational." That warms my heart. That's what I aim for. I just to deliver the content in that manner and to have it be appreciated in that way and seen as valuable and educational and helpful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I appreciate you guys more again than you can possibly know. Please rate and review and subscribe to Disguise Coverage. If you're living in Buffalo, go out and get yourself some One Pie Pizza. It is the best pizza in Buffalo. I give you my official stamp of approval for that. I hope you and your family and friends and loved ones all take care of each other. Be kind to one another. I hope you and your family and friends and loved ones are all doing well and staying safe. I will see you next week. And as always, also big time thank you to Russell Brown. Give him a follow on Twitter at Russ NFL Draft. Just tons of knowledge. Like, he is everything. He's just, again, he's a guy who talks ball. He knows scheme. He knows prospects. He knows the game. He's also really active and responsive on Twitter. And I'll be joining him and Rich Haynes tomorrow night on the Cover One channel for the Cover One draft show as we do a live mock draft of the first round, which I'm very excited for. So tune into that tomorrow night. I appreciate you guys. Take care. I'll see you next week. And as always, go Bills.